My next guest is someone who for years believed she was non-binary and transgender, trapped in the wrong body. Mel was encouraged by the trans community and affirmed by her doctors to undergo so-called gender treatments, including hormone therapy, and she even underwent a double mastectomy. She had her healthy breasts removed. Now, all these treatments were carried out despite Mel having a history of mental health issues that she says were not under control, and they got worse during the course of her treatments. Mel is living again as a female and is suing her medical team, her doctors and Monash Health for negligence, accusing them of failing to adhere to professional standards of care. I'm very pleased to say that Mel Jeffries joins me now. Mel, thank you so much for being here. Tell me about how you were allowed to undergo these gender treatments and how did it all start?
For me to really get into it, you have to kind of really understand that I had quite a troubled childhood, and it led into a turbulent teenage years. It was during year 11, I experienced a sexual assault by a schoolmate, and that kind of created quite a level of discomfort in my body and being perceived as female, which I saw like a youth gender GP clinic, and they connected me with a trans activist when I was, it was either 16 or 17. And that's when I kind of really got into believing like this explains the discomfort and problems that I've experienced. That doesn't even...
Did you feel like if you transitioned to male, you'd be safe? That wouldn't happen to you again?
There was an aspect of that, because that is primarily why I don't have my breasts, because I experienced quite a few situations of non-consensual touching, and most of my life I've considered myself asexual, and I was quite like disgusted by you know, like having a period and the thought of motherhood. So that was actually something that made it, offered me an alternative from what I had. But like there was like quite a few traumatic situations in my childhood that
Do you think those traumas were fully considered before you were allowed to go down this path of having irreversible surgeries? Were you given warnings about what that could mean medically for you?
For me, it's quite difficult because the reason I started this lawsuit was 2 years ago, I got a late diagnosis of autism. When I was 5 years old, they screened me for autism. I had selective mutism, so there was like a few signs, but at that point in time, they said, no, you're just anxious. So that's the diagnosis of autism as well as the sexual trauma. I feel like if I knew that I was autistic when I was a child, I feel like there would have been a lot, like I would have had a better understanding of my body and like why I feel alienated from my body, my family and society. Like having breasts was quite like a sensory issue for me. So bounding, like, because I bound for like 7 years, that put that at ease a little bit, but then that also, I wasn't actually safe from that either, like, because I still, one of my stays in the psych ward, this man didn't know what I was, so he groped my breasts, and I'd been binding at the time, and that was kind of like quite terrifying because it was like, oh, I thought that I passed as a man, and that's kind of one of the biggest things that I'm dealing with is like, I don't really feel like I can trust anyone because it's like for so long I was affirmed in something that couldn't be real and it wasn't real.
And that it's supposed to be an act of kindness to affirm someone's gender identity. But as you've experienced, it's not really kindness at all, is it? It actually creates a whole set of new issues.
Yeah, because it's like I'm actually, because I still struggle with body dysmorphic disorder and have quite severe like disordered eating still. So I've been struggling with the disordered eating since I was about 14. The gender stuff came around like 16-ish. So there's this long-standing issue that I haven't had addressed, and then it's kind of there's similarities between eating disorder treatment and gender like medicine, because eating disorder services, they have one framework that's kind of being applied everywhere. It's like the health at every size, fat acceptance, kind of intuitive eating. And that didn't work for me, just like gender affirming care didn't work for me. So
your experience isn't isolated, is it? There's a lot of girls who go through this who are on the spectrum or who do have traumas in the past. And I think that's why it's so important that you're speaking out, and hopefully you save many other confused youngsters from going down the path you did. And I really do hope your case shines a light on that area. Are you getting support from the trans community or the wider LGBTQI community at all?
There's segments, like there's the LGB movement where they want to cut off the TQ, and I didn't know that existed, because for me it was all the acronyms together and they were all ardently like pro-trans and gender identity, and so it was quite refreshing to see that aspect. But for me, it's been quite like hostile, because I have had a few people since the Spotlight episode, particularly. I described my experience as a medical catastrophe, and then it was like this trans activist that I knew like a decade ago, like went on to this podcast and was like trying to debunk gender affirming care, and it's like it wasn't really appropriate for him to try and debunk the way I described my experience. Like that felt crazy. Like.
I understand. It's very difficult. Mel Jeffries, thank you so much for your time tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thanks.